everything that happened around the greater Houston area. With football winding down, the greater Houston area sports scene looks a little bit different. So tonight we have a very special episode where we bring in Glenn Smith, the founder of the Thanksgiving Hoop Fest, as he will talk some Texas high school basketball with us. And then we'll also have Robert Sheik on with us to talk about the new time slot for Chevrolet's Inside High School Sports, as well as tomorrow's games. Here with the founder of the Thanksgiving Hoop Fest, Glenn Smith. Glenn, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. And yourself?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you so much for coming on the fifth quarter. We're so excited that basketball season is tipping off. You kind of have a different perspective as you get to see teams not only from DFW but all over the country. But talking about Texas high school basketball, who are some of the teams that you have seen so far this season or that you're really looking forward to watching this season?
Well, you have to start off with the reigning state champion, Duncanville High School. A lot of people thought they may have been a one-hit wonder, but they've definitely reloaded. They're really, really playing well. They bought into what David Peavy is teaching, and they're probably one of the most solid teams, not only in the state, but in the country. You also have to look at as well. They're playing really good basketball.
I mean, we got to go to some games in the past couple of weeks, and seeing some of these teams, they're just phenomenal. These high school, what you would think of high school boys, they look like grown men playing. Are there any players around the DFW area that you've seen that you're really excited to watch them grow over the next year, or that you think they're going to have a breakout year?
I would have to say that there's a kid over at Kimball High School who's a sophomore. His name is Ontario. I can't recall his last name right now, but he really had a really good showing at the Thanksgiving Hoop Fest this year, and he really hasn't let up. He has a chance to be really, really special as long as he just kind of stays straight, stays humble, and just continues to get better. He could be the next out of DFW.
So one of the things that we've kind of noticed is that it's hard. The talent around DFW and in Houston is so good. You thought it dropped off after the players like Jaden Smith, RJ Hampton, and all of those guys went on to the next level. But you're starting to see some players really start making their names for themselves. Who are some of those players in your book, since you get to see some of the top talent that there is?
Harrison Ingram over at St. Mark's has really, really blossomed. He had a really good showing against Jalen Green at the Thanksgiving Hoop Fest, where he got an offer from Penny Hardaway at the University of Memphis, and he's really skyrocketed. I would also say Mike Miles over at Lancaster. He's really starting to come into his own. He'll sign late, which is really going to make him really, really a priority for a lot of people, because there's always a market for a big point guard real late in the recruiting season.
Are there any Houston area teams that you've seen that you're kind of impressed with so far? I know we've talked a lot about DFW, but are there any Houston area teams that you've just been really impressed with so far?
Yes, ma'am. Morton Ranch with LJ Cryer, he's really been scoring the ball really well. He's committed to Baylor. He's probably one of the most exciting guards in the state right now, as well as Dickinson. They have Trayvon Mark. Once they get everyone eligible, Houston Yates is probably one of the most exciting teams in the state as well.
It's been interesting to watch how sports have developed from when I was in high school 10 years ago to now. How have you seen the high school basketball just kind of field change over the years?
It's become, well, in Texas in general, it's become more of a hotbed for all college recruiters. Like, normally on each staff in the country, they have at least one guy that they have to have Texas ties to, because one, Texas is so big, and then there's so many guys that go under the radar that have been able to not only go to mid-major schools throughout the country, but also make an impact. I think one that kind of jumps off at the page is C.J. Massenberg. Nobody in the state recruiting him, but he goes to Buffalo, and he's a two-time player of the year at the University of Buffalo, and they made a really good run in the NCAA tournament last year.
So it's cool. We were before we had started the camera. We were kind of talking about the Thanksgiving Hoop Fest. That's become a very big event. Talk about some of these tournaments, and not only the chance for these players to get the reps playing before district starts and before season starts, but getting in front of these college coaches that they might not normally be able to get in front of.
I think high school teams playing in high level, high exposure events are almost a must these days. Because once they get into their district, a lot of the better teams, they're the big fish in their district, and then they'll just run through district. So playing in events such as the Thanksgiving Hoop Fest or the Waterburger tournament, it gives them the opportunity to play against top tier quality competition to prepare them for a deep run in the playoffs as well as making it to state.
A couple more questions and then I'll let you go. I know you've got a busy day ahead of you. But are there any dark horse teams in the DFW area and in the Houston area that you think people should look out for?
Richardson High School in Dallas. They jump off at the page automatically. They probably have the most exciting young backcourt in the country with Rylan Griffin and Casey Wallace. Both those guys are sophomores. Um, they remind me of the old Horton days. I'm sorry, the old Horton brothers at Cedar Hill. Out of Houston, I would have to say Seven Lakes. They have a really
Seven
good team.
Lakes.
They've been playing pretty well here lately. They normally sneak up on a couple people, and I think they're they're primed to make a really good run in the playoffs.
Awesome. Is there anything else that you would like to add or want people to know about the Texas high school basketball scene that's coming up on us for Inside High School Sports very, very soon?
The Texas basketball is up there with any other state. You know, we are known to be a football state, but we really produce some really good players. If you look in the past 10 years, the state of Texas has had at least two McDonough All Americans come out of the state, if not just DFW in particular, as well as we've had three guys in Dallas alone that skipped college and went straight pro with R.J. Hampton, Chance Ferguson, and Emmanuel Mudiay. I think that now people are really starting to take Texas as a state serious in basketball because of the talent that we produce and the consistency of the talent that we have produced.
Awesome, Glenn. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the fifth quarter. We will be right back after these messages.
Don't forget to catch our extended coverage of the high school football season each week on The Warm-Up, presented by your local Houston area Geico agents. We will get you ready for all the action this Thursday on all our social media outlets. Watch Inside High School Sports to catch this week's Chevy Spotlight, brought to you by your Houston area Chevy dealers. Visit your nearest Chevy dealer to test drive their award-winning products.
Hey there, everyone. Ashley Billington and producer of Chevrolet's Inside High School Sports, Robert Sheik, on set today to talk to you about all the action we have tomorrow. It's going to be exciting.
Yeah, big Saturday afternoon of high school football coming up in the greater Houston area. Can't wait.
I mean, we've got some huge games. We're one step away from state after tomorrow. So let's kind of go into some of these games that we have. First up, I want to talk about Katie Taylor.
What a story.
What a great story. Not who you'd expect to say, oh, they're in the semifinals. They're the last four teams in 6A Division II.
Yeah, the Mustangs lost their last three regular season games. Now, granted, those were to Katy Tompkins, and Maid Creek, three really good teams. But it's not very often that you see a team, you talk about peaking at the right time. Well, losing your last three regular season games is not really peaking at the right time. But the Taylor Mustangs have absolutely peaked at the right time when it mattered most, starting week one of the playoffs. This team has been on fire, and what a great story. And the Mustangs get Austin Westlake today up at Baylor's McLean Stadium. And yeah, it would be fun to see Katie Taylor keep this run going and make it all the way to state.
So if you had to pick something or say that Katie Taylor, oh, this is why they're winning, what would you say that this epic run all of a sudden has come to?
I think it's just, it's kind of cliche, but it's just everything has clicked. It's been a total team effort, offense, defense, special teams. In the win last week against Cy Creek, we saw in that big, first half, that Katie Taylor rushed out to, I want to say it was a 37-7 halftime lead. And in that half, we saw a pick six, an interception return for a touchdown. fumble forced by the special teams that was recovered in the end zone for another touchdown. And the offense, every time it got the ball, it seemed like moved down, at least got a field goal. A strong kicking game too. I think they made 3 or 4 field goals in the first half last week. Everything. It was all 3 phases. I can use all the coach speak in the world, but that's really what it has been the key for Katie Taylor. It's been a total team effort. Everything has clicked, and again, you talk about just hitting your stride, finding that peak right as the playoffs are starting, and that's exactly what has happened with Katie Taylor. And the Mustangs have ridden that wave of momentum all the way through the playoffs, and here we are in the state semifinals. And Katie Taylor has a very legitimate chance to play for a state championship, something that I don't know that even any of their players or coaches might have given them a great chance at doing, 5-6 weeks ago. So unbelievable run, and that community has a lot to be proud of right now.
The other 6A Division II team that is currently in the state championship run that could play Katie Taylor if they were to win, that would be a very interesting.
How awesome would that be? Yeah, for
That'd
sure.
be a very interesting one, but it's Spring Westfield.
Yeah.
And that's a team that you all season have said y'all need to watch out for Spring Westfield.
Yeah, I've not to toot my own horn, but I've been high, high on that team all season long. If you've been watching the 5th quarter, going back to the defense that Westfield brings to the table, Westfield's defense has always been really good. Going back decades, it seems like. But this team, that defense has turned it up just a notch. It's just a little bit better. We've seen some really good defensive outputs against some of the best offensive teams in the state, like North Shore. This team really shut them down. Tomball Memorial was racking up 40, 50, 60 points against everybody, and Westfield really shut that offense down in the second round. And it's just kind of continued from there for Westfield. But the difference this year between some of those great defensive teams in years past and this one is that the offense is just a tick better too. And Kendall Taylor, senior transfer at running back, lit it up for 200 yards last week. And that whole offense is just it finds ways to score every week. And it doesn't have to score 50, 60 points like we've seen teams like North Shore and Atascocita do. You don't have to score that many when you have Westfield's defense. Just getting to 28, 30, 35 every week is more than enough, and it has been this year for Westfield.
Most definitely, and they have a tough task as they play Denton Geyer, who has a very good offense. Their defense is pretty good because they beat teams that were fantastic all throughout the season, like Cedar Hill and Aledo and those teams. But it's going to be a tough task when it comes up to a team like playing Denton Geyer. So what is Westfield going to have to do to beat a really good Denton Geyer?
Well, and yeah, like kind of like I just inferred, that defense, we know Westfield's defense is going to be there. If the offense can put some points on the board, and I'll be honest, you spend a lot more time covering teams in the Dallas-Fort Worth area than I do, so I don't know a whole lot about Denton Geyer, other than I know it's a great tradition-rich program that always seems like it's in the state semifinals, state quarterfinals, a lot like Westfield. But if Westfield's defense, we know Westfield's defense, let me backtrack. We know Westfield's defense is going to play great. If the offense can put up, 30 or so points, it's going to be really tough to beat that team because that defense is not that defense is not going to give up a lot of points. I don't care who you're playing. Yeah. I know Denton Geyer is a great team, but Westfield's defense just does not give up points. I don't know how else to say that. It's so tough to score on that defense. So yeah, if Westfield can move the ball and find some ways to score, it could be a long day for Denton Geyer.
And for me, as someone who covers a lot of DFW, it's shutting down KJ Cobbs more than anything. I mean, he scores 4, 5, 6 touchdowns every single game. So if you can stop Denton Geyer's run game, you're going to have a big chance of taking the next step to the state championship.
And Westfield's defense is obviously capable of doing that. So yeah, Westfield has a great shot.
Most definitely. The next game that we'll talk about is the North Shore game as they play tradition-rich Lake Travis. But North Shore is one of those teams that every time we thought a team might be a little bit better than North Shore said, nope, we're the best in the state.
No, it's the Mustangs got off to a little bit of a slow start this season, but again, we talked about Katie Taylor, the other Mustangs. and Westfield. What is it about Mustangs?
Mustangs
this
all of
year?
a sudden.
It's Mustang season. No, but as we talked about with Katie Taylor, North Shore has hit its stride just at the right time of season, and here we are in December, and this team is lighting up the scoreboard. 76 points last week against Atascocita.
Which you would not expect.
No, not at all.
Atascocita.
Atascocita was giving up like 14 points max, to most of the opponents all season long. So now what North Shore will need to do on Saturday is find a way to keep Lake Travis out of the end zone, because that has been a problem for North Shore. North Shore has been giving up points throughout this playoff run. North Shore's been outscoring teams. I think it was 56-35 against Katy, 76-49 against Atascocita. At some point, you're not going to be able to continue to put up 40, 50, 60, 70 points. And, we know Lake Travis, again, one of those great tradition-rich programs. Every single year, it seems like Lake Travis represents Region 4 in the 6A Division I bracket, at least, the last few years. So the 2016 was the last state championship for Lake Travis. Lake Travis beat the Woodlands that year. 5 state championships for Lake Travis, 3 or 4, for North Shore. So you couldn't ask for a much better state semifinal matchup. This one's going to be a lot of fun for sure.
So I want to put a hypothetical out there and look a little bit ahead.
Mm-hmm.
So say North Shore beats Lake Travis, and say Duncanville beats Rockwall. How big of a confidence booster do you think North Shore gets knowing that last year they already beat Duncanville to take a state championship?
Yeah, no, for sure. That's definitely one way to look at it, and North Shore will definitely walk in with a little swagger into that game. Hypothetically speaking, if it is North Shore Duncanville is going to come into that game with a huge chip on its shoulder. So, and at the end of the day, all that stuff will be fun to talk about before the game, and we will absolutely do that.
We most definitely will around here.
And some of that stuff probably will affect some teams' focus all week during practice and stuff like that. Just ever so slightly being that much more focused, probably both teams. But once the game kicks off, it's 11 on each side, and they're going to go play, and it'll be exciting. But both sides, both Duncanville and North Shore, have their hands full this week. So, we'll see. Well, it'll be a lot of fun if it happens. It's the game everybody's been waiting all season for in 6A Division I. But both teams have big tasks ahead this weekend. So, and you do not want to get caught looking ahead, get caught looking past your state semifinal opponent. So. And I'm sure both coaching staffs are doing a great job of reminding their kids of that all week long. So
Most definitely. I mean, Duncanville has a huge task with Rockwall, Jackson Smith, and Jigba just kind of balling out all week or all playoffs. Goodness gracious, it's been a very long season.
It's been a
very long season. But definitely a game that we are going to look forward to next week after tomorrow's games, which we're still super excited for. But another game that we've got tomorrow at Kyle Field in College Station is Fort Bend Marshall versus Boren champion? Bernie champion. Thank you. I've got my best producer over here telling me how to pronounce these names. That's going to be an interesting game. I mean, Marshall.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'll be honest, I don't know a lot about Bernie champion out of the San Antonio area. We don't do a ton typically with teams from that area right now. But Fort Bend Marshall, this team, last season, this team overcame some unbelievable adversity that kids should never have to deal with in the state semifinal round. And those kids did it. Unbelievable effort to get past Corpus Christi, Cal Allen, and into the state championship game. Looking back on my career, that might be one of the most memorable things I've seen and covered from a high school football perspective, or just a sports perspective in general. Like that was a story that was really touching last year, and a lot of those kids are back. Obviously some kids have graduated, but there are a lot of key members from that team that probably still hold some of that in their memory, and you can tell this team really wants to get the state championship that it lost last year, lost in the state championship game to Aledo, and this team has kind of been just on a mission all season long to get back to AT&T Stadium. The only hiccup came against Manville in district play, and that was a revenge game for Manville, and a game Manville really wanted to get some revenge against Marshall. But we saw Marshall come back last week and really just absolutely take it to Manville. 40-10 was the final. Devon A-Chain, every week that guy, it seems like he scores 4 to 5 touchdowns.
It's a human highlight reel. That's exactly
Absolutely.
what he is.
So much fun to watch. And if you haven't voted in our Plays of the Week poll, it might be too late, but Javion Matthews on our Plays of the Week poll, if you'll scroll down our Twitter page and look for it, unbelievable juke move highlight.
Just watch it.
One of my
Don't
favorite
need to
plays
vote, just
from
need
the
to
year.
watch it.
Yep, exactly. So, but yeah, this Marshall team, so many weapons on offense, so much talent all over the field. Avery Helm at defensive back with an interception last week. It seems like he makes plays all the time in the defensive backfield. Malik Hornsby at quarterback, a Division I quarterback.
Track meet when he's back there.
Yeah, absolutely. And these kids, and as you mentioned, track, a lot of these kids are the same guys that won back-to-back state championships in track and field. These guys know how to win. They know what it takes to win at a very high level, at an elite level. And I would not be surprised at all to see Fort Bend Marshall not only take care of business this Saturday against Bernie Champion, but and then the following week and win a state championship.
I remember when I went down there and got to go meet those guys for the recruiting trail, every single one of them, the only goal that they had, win a state championship. Yeah. That's all we're thinking of, winning a state championship. And they could get to go play Aledo to do it. But how big was that momentum of, losing to Manville in the season and then coming back and not only winning against Manville, but handling Manville?
Yeah, absolutely. No, and that has to be a huge confidence boost. Fort Bend Marshall has had a really tough bracket to go through to get here, and the Buffs, kind of shrugged it off and just disposed of every opponent along the way. A&M consolidated in the second round. I think, if you follow the state rankings, I think A&M Consolidated was ranked 3rd or 4th at the time, and or it was somewhere in the top 10. Huntsville, another good program the following round, and then Manville last week. Like that's a really tough. I guarantee you nobody in Class 5A Division II, I'll just say that, nobody remaining in Class 5A Division II has had to go through 3 teams the caliber that Fort Bend Marshall has the last 3 weeks.
Most definitely.
So to be here is already quite an achievement, and I would be shocked if the Buffs don't move on against Bernie Champion.
I've always said I'd really like to see so each team wins the state championship no matter what, and then Division I and Division II have to play against each other for the winner take all out fight. I think that would be amazing.
That would be
and
fun for sure.
It could be a Shadow Creek versus Fort Bend Marshall maybe. We'll see.
That would be
kind of fun to watch. There's one more game tomorrow. I can't exactly remember what team's playing. Or is there another team?
I think that's
it.
Okay,
cool. We touched all of them, yes.
We can talk some more, though.
I mean, we can always talk a little bit more. We're pretty good at that. It's been a long season. It's almost down to an end. What have been some of the highlights of this season for you as you've got to produce the show week in, week out?
Yeah. I think just some of the fun stories to watch. Some of these programs reaching new heights, and it doesn't necessarily have to be reaching the state semifinals. Obviously, the Katie Taylor story right now is a ton of fun to follow and cover. Very happy for that community. But that's not the only. Katie Tompkins 2 years ago, and it's really been kind of a 2-year story for Katie Tompkins. But going into last season, this team went 0-9 the year before, had never even been to the playoffs, much less won a playoff game, and now back-to-back years of going to the third round. That's really, really impressive. And especially doing it this year in 6A Division I. Last year, Tompkins did it 6A Division II, and that's quite a step up in competition when you start looking at the brackets and who you have to face. And speaking of who they had to face in the first round this year, Tompkins had to face Fort Bend Travis. It was a fun story following Fort Bend Travis this year, capturing the district championship that Rich Point had won the last 5 or so seasons. So, just seeing some of these breakout programs, and even on a smaller scale, a program like Clear Falls getting to the playoffs for the first time in a long time. Lamar Consolidated getting back to the playoffs for the second year in a row after a long drought. I'm forgetting one that was just on the tip of my brain. Tomball Memorial got the first win in school history this year. Stories like that are just a ton of fun to get to watch them play out and see new communities kind of get this opportunity to play with the big boys, and in a few years they might be the new big boys. So
it's definitely so, guys. We discussed last week that Inside High School Sports was moving to 11 o'clock.
Yes, 11 p.m. Awesome new time slot.
Yes, and so can you tell them what's going on in the mornings as well, and then what they'll be seeing tomorrow night on Chevrolet's Inside High School Sports?
Yeah, so you will still find us in the mornings, ever so slightly. A little tease of the big show. We'll have some highlights from the biggest game from Friday night. So we'll have some highlights of the Shadow Creek game for you. And then our Chevy Spotlight will run in the morning as well during KHOU 11's news. And then at 11 p.m., it's the full show that you're used to seeing, every Saturday. So it's just going to be, instead of being at 8:30 a.m., it'll be at 11 p.m. So, moving forward, that'll help us get a lot more of these Saturday playoff games for you. So that's certainly going to be fun. And yeah, it's a great new time slot. We're excited about it. And our Chevy Spotlight this week is on the Pearland Band. And what's so interesting about that, you ask? The band is going to be marching in the Rose Bowl Parade.
Ooh.
And that's such a cool honor to
Yeah.
me. That is a staple of New Year's morning. You wake up, after staying up late to ring in the new year, and then you wake up and flip on the TV, and it seems like the Rose Bowl Parade's on every channel. So hopefully you're watching it on KHOU 11.
You should be watching it on
of
KHOU
course.
11.
But yeah, so a very cool honor for the Pride of Pearland Marching Band, and we'll have a fun little Chevy Spotlight with that group this week.
So just so you all know, now we have the warm-up on Thursdays, Robert and I on Fridays, and then Friday night, 24 hours later, you've got the great Chevrolet's Inside High School Sports.
Yep.
You got Inside High School Sports every single day of the week.
Yep, pretty much.
No
yeah.
overlap. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we close out?
We'll have some basketball highlights too as we start to kind of make our way into that. Some really good teams in the Houston area this season. We'll have highlights from Dickinson, Katie Morton Ranch with a big win on Tuesday night. We'll have highlights of that. So we're just excited. Excited about this big Saturday of high school football in front of us, and tune in for all the highlights.
Yeah, and it's time to mix things up as basketball season's
Yeah,
starting. We like it.
Absolutely.
We give you both worlds, football and basketball. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for watching the fifth quarter. I'm Ashley Billington. He's Robert Sheik, and we will see you next time.